get out of that?
Well, it's obvious that he's on the phone with someone and he's getting directions to where he should look, and probably looking for that point of interest, which would have been the three stone configuration that was found in the woods.
So if he tells me that he was on the phone with his daughter at that time, does that sound plausible to you?
His actions are inconsistent with someone who's carrying on a conversation with their daughter. This is more consistent with him receiving some directions aiding him in his search of the crime scene.
Why do you think that?
Well, because he continues to walk around and to look around while he's on the telephone conversation.
Hang on.
Is this inconsistent? That he has told you that this telephone conversation was with his daughter, and his actions are inconsistent because it appears that he is receiving some direction of where to go and to what to look for. Probably specifically that point of reference being the configuration of the three stones in the woods.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Done. I hit the space bar.
Okay.
As you watch him doing this with a knife, what are your impressions of what he's doing there?
He obviously believes that these bags have some evidentiary value and probably contain the remains of Kaylee. This is just shocking conduct on the part of a licensed private investigator. This shows a total disregard for the integrity of this crime scene, as well as a callous indifference to the remains of Kaylee.
Go ahead. What's your visceral, guttural reaction to watching this?
I am just struck by the chilling insensitivity of his acts of hacking at this bag, as though he believes that the remains may be there, and he's almost animal-like in his approach of ripping and tearing this bag. He has no respect or regard for the human remains of poor little Kaylee at all.
Okay.
Okay, as you're watching him move things and dig like this, what could he have been doing to the crime scene if that were the crime scene?
The crime scene consists of more than just the skeletal remains. The crime scene consists of the bag, the surrounding soil. Is it possible that there were fibers associated with this crime, that there was some type of evidence of the bag, or in the bag, or the bag itself, that could have helped identify who was responsible for the death of this child? And going about just digging frantically in this dirt, certainly you have the high probability that if in fact there is evidence there, that he's going to have destroyed it or compromised its integrity, and in fact you might not be able to use it to find who was responsible for the death of this child.
Let's look at it again. What kind of damage? I mean, when we're talking about evidence, is there really minute pieces of evidence that could have been there if that really were the crime scene?
If in his digging, if he happened upon the bag that contained the remains of Kaylee, inside that bag there could have been minute evidence that could lead us to the identity of this killer, such as, did the killer leave behind some arm hair in the bag? Did they leave behind some fiber? Was there something that was particularly associated with the killer that was in that bag that he, in his mucking about, could have compromised or destroyed? And the way that he is going at this is certainly a classic textbook study in how not to conduct a crime scene investigation. Because of the way he's conducting himself, he certainly could have destroyed any type of evidence contained within that bag should he have cut into the bag with his digging, such as an arm hair, some fiber, or some other skin perhaps, or even perhaps a transfer of fluid from the killer to the interior of that bag. Well, he's just compromised that greatly.
Okay,
Yep.
hit it. Now, right around this time in the tape, I hear Dominic Casey say, right around this part of the tape, I heard Dominic Casey say, "It would be right here," with reference to those stones. What significance could that have in the criminal case against Casey Anthony?
Well, obviously, Casey, investigator Casey, is referring to the point of interest, the 3 stones, and that it should be here. He has to be referring to the body. So the significance is, who is on the other end of that cell phone that's told him that these 3 stones are a point of reference and that the body should be located either there or very close to these 3 stones. It is obvious that it had to be either information that came from the killer or someone so closely associated to the killer that would have that information, and that is a big question and a big key as to who killed this child, who was on the other end of that cell phone giving him these directions.
Okay. As you're watching him driving that rod into the ground here, what kinds of damage could he have done to the bag or the crime scene that could have destroyed evidence that could tell you who the killer is?
Well, with the ferocity in which he's probing into the ground, if he were to have punctured the bag, what if there was a fingerprint left by the killer on that bag? And because of the fact that he's ramming that rod through the bag, could have destroyed the fingerprint. What if there was, again, a hair or some fiber or some trace blood on that bag? Again, he punctures it. He's destroyed that evidence and, in fact, made it almost impossible to identify who may have been responsible for this child's death.